Hey, everybody, and happy Monday to you. This is Nicole Harvick, and I am the host of the Change Book podcast. That's the podcast where every Monday we highlight one of our amazing authors in the Change Book. And today we have Bethany Stone with us. So, Bethany, how are you today?
I am doing great. How are you, Nicole?
You know what? I'm really good. I know we had a few glitches here, but it is so wonderful to see you up, and we're just going to forge through it and do this.
Sounds great.
Good, good. Now, one of the questions I always like to ask is, why did you choose the Change Book?
Because I love the idea of different people that have an immense amount of knowledge coming together and compiling something that can make a difference in somebody's life. So I think that that's such a beautiful idea and a beautiful thought. And for the opportunity to be part of that, I was really excited.
Well, we're glad to have you here, that's for sure. And I read your bio, and it's very, very impressive. So let's start with, you're a mindset coach. What does that mean?
So a lot of people will get stuck with their thinking patterns, or they'll realize that they have false thinking patterns, or they'll just feel like they don't have good habits and they know that they want to change things in their lives, but they don't know how. And so I transform their thinking patterns into patterns that can be consistent so that they can change what they want and get the outcome that they want out of their life. Because really, if we change the way we think, then we can change anything.
That's very, very true. And that's really hard for some people. I know I've worked with people that they're so stuck in that it's almost like that is embedded into their core, which I don't think it is. What kind of tools do you use to help them flip that mindset?
One of the things I like to teach very first is something called a virtuous cycle and a vicious cycle, because I think we all will get caught in something called a vicious cycle, where we kind of spiral down, and it's just kind of this repeated thing where we will, something will go bad in our life, and then we kind of hyper focus on it a little bit, and then we kind of bring ourselves down, we kind of get down on ourselves, and things just keep compiling onto themselves. And recognizing when that is happening, how to recognize that and jump out of that vicious cycle that just kind of just crushes us, and into a virtuous cycle. And when we're in a virtuous cycle, we're thinking outside of ourselves. We have gratitude, and we can look at our problems and be like, you know what, that was really terrible, but these are things I can do. I can't control that, but I can. And so it's like looking at it through different lenses. And so it's kind of like being able to recognize when you're there and jumping over and being like, whoa, I don't really want to be there because I don't like the way that makes me feel. How can I make this better?
Yeah, and I think that's so important because, I had a hardship, and for a long time I had that vicious cycle. And as I look back on myself, I knew I didn't want to be there. So I started doing the work, and the work is not always that easy, is it?
No, it is not easy. And it is being consistent is key. And I have 5 boys, and 3 of them are adults. One of them is almost an adult, and then a little girl. She's 11. But dealing with these boys, and I have a background also in education, and I would specialize in creating curriculum for neurodivergent kids. And so I also have a son who has autism. So when you take the way that different brains work and the way that they just think things differently, and you try to meet them exactly where they're at, because everyone learns differently and everyone adapts things differently. So when you are able to see how they need to learn and help them through that, then they can progress. And the consistency is key. And what I tell my teenage boys, and I say, you know what? You just go to the 1, 2, 3 rule. If you're having a hard time and you're stuck doing something that you know you need to do, you just 1, 2, 3, go. No matter what, as soon as you get to go, you have to go. And if that 1, 2, 3 takes 10 seconds to count, 1, 2, 3, when you are on go, you have to go. And it just gives you that prep time, which, in the child development world, we call it wait time. You have to give wait time, but you're giving yourself that wait time to mentally prepare yourself to reach the goals and the potential that you want, even though you kind of don't really want to do it right now. You are stuck. But 1, 2, 3, go, you can do it.
I love that. You know what else I love? You made the statement that all brains work differently.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that will learn something or read something and they make a blanket statement. Mm-hmm. And I'm always like, you can't do that. Because I think different than you think different than the next person. And you said you have to meet people where they're at.
Yes. So meeting them exactly, because we have kinesthetic learners, auditory learners, visual learners. We have kinesthetic auditory learners. We have visual kinesthetic learners. Like there's some people that really struggle with school because they're a kinesthetic learner. They're not a visual auditory learner. And as soon as they're able to touch materials, all of a sudden everything makes sense. Well, our brains are just wired in a way that you need to be able to have the world make sense and be able to reach your full potential in the way that you want to by meeting how your brain functions and works.
Yeah, and that's such a good point. And, I don't think the way you do. So why would we assume that everyone thinks the same way? It's a really interesting thing right now that I hear a lot of people saying that I'm just insisting that this is what it is. And it's like, not for everyone. Maybe not even for one person. You can't assume that what you think is what they think. And that's what makes it an interesting world, right?
Yep. And 100%. Yep.
Sometimes not easy, but always, always different.
I know. And that's when we just have to take a deep breath and just be like, you know what? I understand that you really think this way. I think differently, but I can respect the way that you think. And I honor that. But at the same time, I want you to honor the way that I think. And Absolutely. It's like, and it leaves that great conversation of like respect, because the bottom line is, the thing that does make us beautiful and amazing is that we do think that differently, and we do have different opinions. And that's why our world can grow and thrive, or whatever we want it to do, because we have so many different ways of thinking.
Absolutely. And the way I think about it too is I can learn from this person. I can learn something from this person, not shut myself down, shut them down, shut everybody down. It's like, just be considerate enough to listen. If you don't resonate with it, that's fine. But if you do, maybe you will learn something. So,
and just being open, just be open and respectful. You never know. Maybe you'll learn something. Maybe you won't. Maybe they'll learn something.
And you never know. And, one word that you mentioned, neurodivergent. Now, I've been hearing a lot of that lately, and I'm familiar with the word, but I'm not really familiar with the meaning. Can you explain that to me?
Yes.
And for our audience?
Yeah. So neurodivergent is people that have ADHD or autism, high functioning autism. Their brains, like even people that are dyslexic. So we like to pigeonhole everybody, and we call that typical. But the problem is that we are now in a generation where we have more neurodivergent brains. We just do. And actually, like, coming from an educational background, there is so many kids now that think differently. The kids that I saw 20 years ago are not the same kids that I saw 5 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Like the degree of change with the way that they think is completely different. How many kids are diagnosed with autism now or have ADHD. And so we're coming to a whole different generation where brains are different. People are learning differently. We have so much more stimulation when we're younger. We have so much more, just our environment is so much more interactive than what it was when we were kids. And so that plays a big role in our brain development as we get older.
Interesting. And do you think that we're so different now because of the conditioning that they're having, like being on games earlier? And I don't know if they have that much interaction with each other now as they used to. What do you think about that?
I think it definitely plays a role. I think that our world has changed, whereas before we had a lot more space and we weren't like we'd go outside and play a lot more. And now we're living in apartments. And if we want to go play, we have to go walk down to the park or things like that. And so it takes a lot more effort to have these experiences. And so our environment always plays a key role. One of the key things actually in mindset and everything is your environment. If something isn't right, look at your environment first.
Oh, interesting.
Because is your room a mess? Your room reflects what your brain feels. And I know that's a really interesting concept, because when you look at like a bed or your closet, like, I can relate. I can relate to that right now, you know?
Yeah. You're kind of scaring me a little bit because I didn't make my bed today.
Well, and I tell my husband every day, and well, all my kids, like, you always start your day off with a made bed. It doesn't matter, because no matter what else you do, if you have at least made your bed, then you've accomplished at least one thing today, no matter what.
Okay. Maybe you can be my accountability partner on
that. No matter what, if you've at least made your bed, you can look back at your day and be like, you know what? I did do stuff. Meh, I made my bed. It's like the beginning win of your day. Like, you accomplished that already, and you can just either snowball it, or you can just be like, that was good.
I'm going to remember that. I love that. You know, you've accomplished something. That's a great way to state that. So I'm going to remember that, Bethany. Now,
good.
Now I read your bio, which is of course very, very interesting, and it talks about you having significant hardships. Yes. And I think sometimes the things that we go through personally bring us to where we're at. Is that a applicable statement in your?
100%. I don't think I look back at my life and I think, yeah, things were really hard. Like, we grew up, my parents are Swiss, and they would just worked hard, and we just didn't grow up with a lot of money or means. And we worked really hard, and my parents have a really successful business. Our house burned down when I was younger. And then I was in 2 abusive marriages. Like, there's been a lot of things that have been really hard, but I'm a super optimist. And at the same time, regardless of how hard things are, when you look at things and focus on the little glimmers of hope, it kind of gives you the motivation to just keep moving on and just feel that you're not alone.
Yeah, I agree with that so much. And the interesting thing with me is when I was going through it, I you think your world's crumbling, that it can never be the same again. And mine happened, oh gosh, going on 12 years ago. But when I look back, I think to myself, that didn't happen to me. It happened for me, or I wouldn't be the person I am today. But that's a really hard concept for someone that's just starting out on this healing journey that you create for them. How do you convince them of that?
You have to remember that you don't grow as a person unless you're uncomfortable. So unless you're uncomfortable, you're not going to grow. So if what you're going through is really hard and you don't want it to be there anymore, because hardship is not fun. But think of the lessons you're going to learn when you're on the other side of this. It's always a rainbow. You know, you're going up and it's hard. But guess what? As soon as you get to the other side, you're going to be sliding down that rainbow. And you're going to look back and be like, wow, that was really beautiful.
Exactly. And it is. And when you do come out on the other side, that's a great way to put it. It is a rainbow. You know, it's something we can't wait to see and experience.
And you can reflect on that, and you can help others, and you can grow in such a way. But you have to you have to look back and realize what it was. And I think that's a lot of the time something that we forget. Sometimes we just become bitter instead of looking back and realizing that actually helped us grow. And I wouldn't have this if I didn't have that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you use a lot of forgiveness in your mindset?
100%. You have to use forgiveness. You have to forgive yourself.
Yes.
That is the hardest person to forgive. You have to forgive yourself, and you have to give yourself mercy and realize that we are not perfect beings, and we aren't meant to be perfect beings. We are supposed to make a lot of mistakes, and we are supposed to stumble and fall, because that's what makes humanity.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it's so interesting, because what you say is I was harder on myself than I was on a cheating spouse.
Yes.
You know, I took the blame, you know, what could I have done? What should I have done? Blah, blah, blah. And why are we so hard on ourselves?
Because it's human nature. We beat ourselves up because we want to rise ourselves up. We have this idea of what we want. We have this perfection idea of what we want for ourselves. And when we don't achieve it, we just beat ourselves up mentally over and over and over again. Like, I should have done that. Why didn't I not do that? And we just mentally beat ourselves up. And when we're mentally doing that, it causes, actually, there's studies that show this, that it causes illness. We
Yes.
actually physically will make ourselves sick by mentally beating ourselves up, not realizing that it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to not be perfect. And it's okay to take a day and stay in bed and just do nothing for a minute and then attack the day, because another day is going to come no matter what. And every day is a new day and a new chance.
Ooh, I love that too. I love that too. And I know sometimes they're so mired in that negativity that getting that across to someone can be really, really hard. But you can oftentimes see the light bulb when it finally clicks with them. And one thing you talk about is people getting sick. And, you know, I know that a lot of trauma and their mindset can cause disease.
Yes.
Something, and that's like, you can Google that and find that out. People think, you know, you're crazy, but my mother never forgave my father, and she ended up having breast cancer. And it saddens me. That was before I had the knowledge that I do, but I know part of that disease was her not utilizing forgiveness properly and holding on to everything. And, you know, I know that with me, and probably with you, when things were going on, you can feel it inside your body, the tenseness and the angst and the anger. And I, for one, was so glad to just release all that. How do you help your people release all of that that's stuck inside their body?
It's when you look. So I was a Montessori educator, and part of that is a peace education. And recognizing that when you look outside of yourself, then it's a lot harder to focus on everything that you have dug deep inside of you. And looking at other people, you start gaining hope, you start gaining gratitude, and you start gaining love. Now, with those tools, because you've now looked outside of yourself, you can now look back at yourself and give yourself a little bit more mercy. But sometimes that little seed has to be, okay, start writing a gratitude list. Start finding giving 3 comments of love to somebody a day. Giving yourself and growing that little seed by looking outside of outside of yourself helps you to be able to grow out of that dark place that you have.
I love that. And I think gratitude is so important on this
100%,
journey.
yeah.
You know, and sometimes I wake up and it's just like your first breath when you wake up. You should be at least grateful for that, because you're still here. And it doesn't have to be a big thing, does it?
No, it doesn't. I mean, so many times, one of the things that I do when I'm really can't handle life and I'm super, super, super stressed. And I always recommend to all my clients, whenever you have like a moment where you're just going to have a mental breakdown, you find something that's going to calm you. And for me, I go, and I'm not OCD, but I go and I wash my hands. And the reason why is because it takes me out of the situation. Number one, I get out of the situation where I'm feeling angst. And I bring my focus to something I can control. I can control the water. So I turn on the water and I make sure that the temperature is something that I really love. And I will wash my hands for a good 2-3 minutes, feeling the soap. That feels so nice. And I just return my thoughts to something that's going to ground me, reground me, and take me out of that emotional mindset that I've gotten into, back to a rational mindset, and breathe while I'm just washing my hands. And I'm just feeling this. And then I rinse off my soap, and it's almost like, for me, it's like symbolic of I can try again.
Oh, and I've never heard that before. And I love that. It's like a pattern interrupt, isn't it?
Well, it is. And I always recommend, because we will get stuck or we'll find ourselves in these situations where all of a sudden we're having anxiety, all of a sudden we're not okay, and we're getting into that emotional mindset really, really quickly, and we're kind of spiraling. We can feel our blood pressure rising, all these things. If you can take yourself out of that, find something, maybe go for a walk. Maybe it's, I have another client that puts their hands on the side of their pants and rubs up and down on the seam. And just that motion, bringing attention to that and breathing can take from the emotional mindset back to the rational mindset, calm yourself. Okay, I'm okay. So you find something that works for you. I like to wash my hands because I feel like I can excuse myself. And sometimes I want alone moments, and no one's going to follow you in the bathroom, hopefully. You know what I mean?
Children or dogs.
Yeah. So it gives you that moment to just okay.
Yeah, that's a great, I'm going to remember that. I really like that for some people that have anxiety, and it just calms them down, right? Just diverts their mind as to what they're thinking.
Yeah. Well, that's great. With I was diagnosed with battered wife syndrome from one of my marriages. Sorry. It's okay. I'm doing good. Okay. But, for a long time, I had PTSD, and it was a really difficult thing for me because I would be in a grocery store and I would smell alcohol on somebody. And I literally felt like I was now going to be attacked. Even though I'm just at the grocery store, I know no one's going to come out. But because you have these triggers, regardless of what your trigger is, you still have the emotional responses. You still feel the certain way. I mean, you could have a relationship with somebody and then something goes terribly wrong. And then a song comes on that reminds you of that person. And all of a sudden you are feeling like you are smothered. Those are emotional responses that our body holds on to. And being able to separate out of that and being able to recenter and be okay is a beautiful thing. So you find something. I don't have any, I can be around people, I can be around alcohol. None of those things bother me anymore. It took 6 years, but it also took me realizing forgiveness, love, grace, mercy. And when you can remember those things and you can recenter yourself and get out of that emotional response that you're having, you're then okay. And then you feel better. And you realize that you're safe and you're fine.
And one of the other things you mentioned was breathing.
Yes.
Can you talk about the importance of that?
Oh, we hold our breaths. As soon as we're having anxiety, we start depriving our body of oxygen, and then that just spirals things down even worse. And so that's why everyone's just breathe, just breathe, just breathe. I don't know if anyone's ever told you that, but it is so true. And like taking deep breaths. I mean, box breathing. I'm sure, are you familiar with box breathing, right?
I've heard of it. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. And it's just taking a deep breath up, hold it for 3 seconds, breathe it down, hold it for 3 seconds, breathe up, and re-oxygenating your body and your brain help you to be able to think clearly. Because as soon as we're feeling anxiety or depression or any of these like tightening feelings, we stop breathing or we are holding our breath. How many times do we hold our breath? You know, it's true. We do.
And we don't even know it. We don't even realize we're doing it, you know, and then you get that tightness in your root chakra, and it, you know, it's so disruptive.
You're like, oh, I should breathe. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Yeah.
Dang it.
Just when you thought that the universe took care of that, you realize you have to take care of it as well. And one of the things I do is when I'm really frustrated, which isn't as often anymore, is I'll breathe down and then breathe in, then release it with sound, like a guttural, and not just a baby one, because what I'm looking to do is like just disrupt whatever's going on and get it out of me. Do you have your clients do that as well?
Mm-hmm. So there's four different breaths that you can do. And so there's the bunny breath, which is like you're anxious and you're building anxiety. So start bunny breathing. And it is taking 4 little breaths up like a bunny. That's a bunny breath. And then you have a snake breath. And a snake breath is when you need to feel calm, but you're feeling very tight. And so you take a deep breath in, and then you breathe out like a snake. Those are snake breaths. And then you have the third one, which is a bee breath, where you just are feeling really, the world is too much. You're overstimulated. You don't know what to do. So you do a bee breath. And a bee breath is, that's a bee breath. And then you do a bear breath. And this is your anger you need to release. And these are called bear breaths. And it's like, you know, and just as loud as you can. You know, and literally, I also encourage, like when you are taking that breath in, tense everything up as much as you can. And when you are going out, you release as much as you can. Because what that's going to give you is it's going to give you proprioceptive input to your entire body. And it's going to release all of that emotion and all of that frustration that you have built up. It's going to release all of that. And you're going to feel a sense of calm coming over from head to toe.
Oh my gosh. You know what? I've never heard of those breaths.
Oh,
and I love them. That's what I love about this. I always learn things. And so, of course, as soon as we're off, I'm going to be Googling that.
Go for it.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I, for one, am definitely checking that out. So, but I know we're coming close to the end of this interview. And I definitely want to thank you for being here. We had those glitches. So thank you for hanging in there with me till we got it settled. And can you leave our audience with just some nuggets, 1 or 2 nuggets to help calm them, to help them understand that they're not the only ones that are maybe going through something? What would you tell someone?
I would tell them that when you're feeling like the world is coming down on you and you feel like there's no more hope, just remember that the sun comes up every day. And when it goes down and you feel like there's no more hope, remember that it's going to rise again. Days continue. They always move on. And every day is a new day. And what you choose that day is going to change your tomorrow. So if you don't like what happened today, then change.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. And for our audience out there that would like to get a hold of Bethany, I put all of her links in the description so you won't have any problem finding her. And for me, I would highly recommend reaching out to her. If you have any questions, you can tell from this interview. She's amazing. She's knowledgeable, kind, and loving. So Bethany, thank you for being here today. It's been a pleasure to meet you. And I'm sure.
It's been a pleasure to meet you too.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And everybody who's watching, I will see you again next Monday with another one of our amazing co-authors of the Change Book. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.